Launch the feature.
Hi everyone. We are live from my phone after just a couple of technical difficulties. We're doing the phone. We're doing it live. That's how we roll here on this live stream. So you can see here we are at this beautiful setting of Podfest in Orlando.
No, you can set the phone here.
I'm just going to set the phone here and look at our beautiful
No, we have
faces
the
will
stand.
show up. That's okay. We're good. We don't
Look,
need it.
you don't need it.
We're all good. Hi
You cannot
friends.
have your laptop back.
I welcome you and I hope you're all well.
I'm going to start recording this on my phone.
Jordan is going to start recording this on her phone.
And I'm going to request that, is there any way we could get you to find this link and share it to the links that we put in?
Oh yeah, that was
This is the link.
Did you got it work?
Yep, this
Yeah.
is the
Oh.
working
Hi,
stream.
everybody.
Oh, so hi everyone.
Hello.
This is so exciting.
Yikes. I told everyone else the link. This was not the link.
Oh God!
So-
Let's fix that.
It's the link now.
Well, too late now. Let's just roll with it.
We're just gonna go.
Yeah.
We're doing it live. We're doing it. Hi guys.
Hello. My name's Kat Blackard. I run the Nerdy Show Network and the Consequence Podcast Network, and make the RPG audio drama, the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program. And I'm your host for this discussion about women in audio drama. Starting from the left, we have Caitlin Statz behind the White Vault.
In front of the white ball right
In
now.
front of the White Vault, yeah. The vault is actually behind that banner. Jordan Cobb
Hiya.
of Yanis Descending, and Sarah Werner of Girl in Space.
Hey friends.
So we're going to be discussing the female force within the audio drama industry,
Oh, we're a force. I like that.
Yes.
I like this.
Sounds like we're superheroes. I love it.
and all tangential and necessary conversations thereof. But we do have two topics to start us off that come from the Audio Drama Hub group on Facebook, and they are: even though it's changing, women in the film industry tend to write or direct films for female audiences, and that doesn't seem to be as true in the audio drama community. Why do we think that is?
I definitely feel like I don't go into it thinking I'm going to write for women. I think I'm going into it thinking I'm going to write for horror fans. I'm sorry, I'm talking towards you. Project. Project. I feel like I'm going to be writing for horror fans. I know what I enjoy, and the things that I typically enjoy might not be considered typically feminine, but I know that I'm not writing for just that group of people. I'm writing for anybody who wants to be thrilled and enthralled, and that can be anybody. Absolutely anybody.
Yeah, the stories I tend to tell, because they're the kinds of stories that I'm interested in, are the ones that kind of deal with how we are human beings and what it means to be a human and how to go through the human experience and the wide and wild range that involves. So I write stories for human beings, and they come in many different sizes, shapes, genders, and flavors. So, cannibalism is bad though. I probably shouldn't have said flavors. Don't eat people, please. I would appreciate that.
That's my show.
Or at least not me. Just not me. Any of the rest of them don't taste good. I only look like chocolate.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, why do we think that in audio dramas it doesn't appear that women feel pressured to confront specifically female themes, conventionally, stereotypically, obnoxiously female themes?
Yeah, well, that's such a fantastic question, and I really appreciate your answers. They're really good. I also want to just say that I don't feel the pressure to do it because there's no, and this is good and bad in several ways. There's no lens watching us. There's no set precedent. People often talk about podcasting as the Wild West because it kind of is. And for better or for worse, we don't have a Oscar committee. We don't have a SAG guild. We don't have all of these cultural institutions in place that tell us how we should behave as women, as creators. Where I think that a lot of those restrictions do take place in what women can and should do in books, and it happens in movies and films. If you're a woman publishing a horror book, they're going to try to put pink on the cover, but we don't have that kind of pressure. Number one, because those institutions don't exist. Number two, because it's so DIY. Like, I chose to have purple in my logo because I wanted purple in my logo. It has nothing to do with anything gendered.
Do you feel like that's because we're not in front of a screen? We're not putting our face on our podcast logo. It's our stories first, us second.
I mean, that's one way that you could look at it, and that's probably right for several people. I just feel like, and you know, gender identity is on a spectrum, and I don't even know how feminine I identify, so I just want to be upfront about that too. But it's just, yeah, I like not being able to, I like not having to feel like I need to conform to anything, because there's really no set precedent. We're setting the precedent.
Now, to answer the specific connotations of the question, it's women in the film industry tend to write or direct films for female audiences. The simple answer to that is money. The studios will not let women write or direct features, generally speaking, that don't cater to a female audience, because advertising controls everything. Now, we'd all like to be getting advertising money, and I know for a fact, as the head of several networks, that advertisers still want us to be in boxes. They don't want to see a 50-50 male-female split in terms of like demographic stats, and heaven forbid if you're in the middle.
I'm in the middle.
Me too. So yeah,
I don't even know.
They don't want us to be free of mind in any way. If we put ourselves in boxes, then they can put ourselves in boxes, and they can sell to us better. And that's why we have big pens for women.
Yeah. Consider us unboxed.
Yeah, and that the Wild West analogy of the podcast industry is very true, except that it's a West that's being tamed rampantly.
Yes.
And I'm curious, as more money is injected into the podcast industry and more success is defined by the famous people who are involved in it, we might actually start to see what has an opportunity to become popular and successful within the podcast industry diminish in terms of voice, because of these older systems, these older, largely patriarchal systems, if I'm being quite frank, want to control the dialogue so they can profit from it in conventional ways that must be dismantled.
And just to add to that,
Yes.
they're going to bring over, well, I say going to, I have a concern that they may try to bring over, consciously or unconsciously, some of the creator restrictions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
and some of those norms that are not norms in podcasting right now, but are currently norms in film and television and books and other media, making sure that those norms don't come over as well.
Which is ironic, considering that the commercial interest in podcasts is because of the success of podcasts, and by colonizing podcasts, they will dismantle what makes podcasts great if left unchecked.
Correct. Yes.
This is now a much larger discussion than we set out to have initially.
It is.
Let's go to the next one.
Be aware of this,
Yes.
and then consider life.
Consider life. I like
Consider
that.
your life, consider your choices, consider your podcast.
The next question is, obviously we want to write amazing female characters, but have you ever changed a character's gender simply for better representation?
Oh, that's a question.
I've changed orientations for better representation. I have not, as of yet. Wait, yes, I have. So with my first podcast, Here Be Dragons, I changed a lot from the original story. But the original story had significantly more dinosaurs in it than Here Be Dragons currently has. Dinosaurs are hard to fit onto a submarine. But the character of
That sentence by itself.
Dinosaurs are hard to fit on a submarine. You heard it here first.
listen, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna try.
Yes.
But the character of Commander Scarlet was one who was originally no.
Can I have my computer, please? Sorry.
I thought you wanted
I want
to
to make
jelly
computer.
bean.
No, I don't want. I'm not going to interrupt our stream for jelly beans. I want to make sure our stream is working.
I'm gonna hold this.
Yes,
so
that's
it's not
a
on
good
the camera.
Yeah. But the character of Dr. Atlas was one, and Commander Scarlet were both originally men in the original setup for the scripts. But as I started changing the general development of the story, I decided to make them both women because all of a sudden and I'm not entirely sure how it even happened. I just looked up one day and I was like, I have a submarine full of vaginas here, and it was excellent.
Is that one of your merch items that we can purchase?
Really needs to be.
I just wanted to say hi.
We're
We're actually live streaming, but also
But hey,
hi.
Cole, it's so good to see you. Oh my God.
So Cole from Podchaser is here.
Hey, Cole, can you pop your head in for just a second? You can see the camera, so like just
Oh.
hello. So Podchaser is an incredible platform for podcast discovery. It's effectively the IMDb of podcasts. That's where you can actually see like credits for who's writing these things, who's acting these things, and follow us
Free
independently
advertising.
wherever we may be across whatever shows. It's very integrated into a lot of useful things for podcast listeners in ways that say Apple Podcasts, for example, or Spotify simply aren't and can't hope to be.
These are
So-
those little cameos you get when you're at a conference.
See,
It's like,
cameo.
"Flash."
It's Cole. Woo! Cole.
Check out Podchaser. It's really neat. It's user populated.
And Cole is great.
Yeah, and rate and review our programming.
Yes, please. It
Thanks,
helps.
Stick around. Yeah.
Continue.
I all I
Dinosaurs
remember
and
is
submarine.
submarine full of vaginas.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my
suddenly-
God. So many
suddenly-
isolated sentences that
yes.
need to be expounded on.
Yeah.
Right? My God.
We're not on.
Yeah, so I'm not sure necessarily that I did it for well, one of them I think I did change a little bit for representation because I am a very strong advocate of seeing women in leadership positions. And so, the character who became Commander Scarlet, as soon as I shifted the lens of the story, I was like, it would be really cool to have this military figure just be a woman in charge of this. And then it just felt weird that the one doctor on board, like official with a doctorate doctor, was a dude. And so I changed that as well. And, I already had this historian and the engineer who were both women. But then all of a sudden the whole thing became about sisterhood and women, and it was just so excellent. But yeah, happy accident.
Kind of changes the entire narrative flow of the story.
Oh, the entire, because I didn't change it enough when it stopped being about time traveling and dinosaurs, and now suddenly we're in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle chasing mermaids.
Like you should be.
Like you should be.
I think that for me, in any, no matter what you're creating in fiction, you're creating the world that you want to live in. And all of us are doing that. We're setting a vision and we're creating a world that we want to live in. And I don't know about changing, but I know that initially when I created the show, I wanted to, it was important to have representation, and it was important, and I wanted to treat it as important and established within the world, but not necessarily have that be a focal point. So it very casually will sometimes mention someone's orientation or what have you, but I try to keep that prominent yet in the background and treat it like everyday life, normalize. Everybody is okay using gender fluid pronouns in this world. So that's my experience with it. So I haven't made any changes. All characters are as they initially were created to be. So
I think with the White Vault we have such a small cast, but with my other show Liberty, we have so many people. Every story can be a tiny different story. We have so many different voices that we want to showcase, and the world that we've created, very similarly to what Sarah said, is it's very normalized for people to just be who they want to be, and we wrote that into the world. It's very easy for people to use gender fluid pronouns because it's the way that they're raised.
It's a great kindness in spite of the horror that you inflict on the world at large.
Yes, well, that's the thing. They are the center part of the world is such a utopia. I want it to be the kind of utopia I'd want to be a part of.
Yes.
And then there's cannibalism on the outside. So you just separate those two things.
utopia.
Much utopian center, cannibalism on the outside.
And I'm sure the cannibal does not mind who they're eating as long as they're eating.
I like
It's
that.
tough
I
out
like
there.
that. I
I
like that.
don't. I mean, yes, I don't. Cannibalism on the outside, she says, sitting on the outside of this particular group.
But
We'll hear our way
Well,
in.
these don't.
we wouldn't. We've changed people in the script when we run out of people. When you run out of people to
Murdered.
when we run out of people to fill those roles, and we're like, oh, okay, well, then let's create these other characters. Let's change these characters so that we can voice act them with these amazing people, and that helps to shape our world. But we also try really hard to put in that representation in Liberty.
Oh, and
yeah.
be intentional
So
about
it's,
it.
and it takes a lot of intentional writing to do it right.
Yeah.
So.
You cast me, for example, as a non-binary character in one of the Liberty shorts.
And I'm sorry, I do think you died.
Oh yeah. That was a moment where I was like, should I say something? Like, is this like, a typical like queer death? But I was like, it's a horror show.
Everybody dies.
Everybody's gonna die.
Yeah, that's
It's
something
death
I've
is
been
equalizer.
personally running into with writing Descendants is, nobody's safe. Everybody dies. It's a horror show, but I'm deliberately trying to inject as much diversity in there as I can, and then I go, I've murdered a lot of really diverse people.
It's okay as long as you murder them.
I do my best.
Equal murder.
Equal murder.
To the end of that change, a lot of the series that I do are improvised. They're RPG audio dramas, so they're 50% actual play, building the world improvisationally, and then 50% produced with including content created after we've built that narrative, so we can further develop storylines and characters, make it feel organic in terms of storytelling.
Yeah.
So in the course of the most recent series of the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program, two characters that were just male characters developed a dependency that eventually turned into romance, even though they were played by straight men. And they recognized as characters that was...
We might be live streaming right now. I'm so sorry.
We're live streaming.
That was a dynamic thing, that's just what happened, and it was beautiful.
Absolutely.
So there is sort of an adjacent question to that initial question.
Okay.
Do you feel an obligation to self-represent in your work?
Yes.
Like myself as
Perhaps as a woman, perhaps or any kind of background you might have, beyond just being a woman who blank, or a woman who is blank, or who believes blank.
Well, I think we were talking about this yesterday, about how who you are, even if you're not an actor in your show, comes out through your script. So the women in the White Vault, they're all doctors. I'm not a doctor, but I always aspired to be one. And they're very intelligent women. They're women who have their specializations. They're going to make the good, hard choices. And I try to put that forward. I don't know if that's a personal reflection of me, or at least my aspirations. But now we're getting lots of...
Let's keep going.
Maybe you can't help but self-represent at that point.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm a smart woman. I want to see more smart women. So here's a story about smart women. Because of course, you write what you know,
And you
generally
create the world
speaking,
you want.
and you can relate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the strengths that we put forward, is we're writing something that we understand, something that we know, and something that we want out in the world. So we're passionate about it, and we create good content.
Yeah. I mean, personally, as a black bisexual woman, leaning more into fluidity these days, I guess. I don't know. We're figuring it out, folks. But I do feel a need to self-represent, and it's probably why I play all of my lead characters. Sorry. Except I'm not. But...
And you kill yourself equally.
And I kill myself equally, so... but I do feel it's incredibly important, because if we're going to be voicing these stories, if we're going to be telling these stories, then we need to put ourselves in them. That, like Sarah said, I am a very strong believer of we're building the worlds that we want to see. And that I want to see myself in these worlds that exist. These worlds that I'm building, whether I'm writing a book or a script, or if I'm doing an audio drama, I think it's incredibly important. And I think it's important that we include as many other kinds of people in these worlds as well. That it's not just self-representation, it's representation on as many fronts as we can possibly champion. And if that means you hire a sensitivity reader because you're writing something and it's outside your experience, then you're hiring a sensitivity reader.
And you should.
And you should, and I'm totally going to be doing that in the next couple of, whenever I finish my scripts. But yeah, no, I personally always try to self-represent as much as humanly possible, because I know people like me exist out in the world, and I can't see you, but
You can see her.
see you, Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully said. I don't know if I can say anything half as eloquent as what these two have said. Girl in Space is, as I've said on a number of occasions, 100% autobiographical. It is essentially a true story about my life.
You were born in a tube.
Well, it ends up being, if you've ever read The Things They Carried, It ends up being what's referred to as story truth, because there's truth on a number of levels. There's like literal truth where I was, a test tube baby, which I was not. But then there's the feeling of identifying with being in that situation and having that be a truth that you live, and having that be a truth that can connect people who also have that similar experience. And so creating a world where those truths are shared, and creating a world where I don't know. It's what is that? There's a quote that I'm not remembering, and I apologize for that. Oh, see, this is very uneloquent. Oh, this is.
Was it a
very-
quote from the Rules They Carried?
It's
Because I might know
casual.
it.
It's all casual.
So thank you for bearing with me, but I think what I want to say is that it is all of your characters are secretly you. While you also are intentionally building them, you're also building them unconsciously. Mine ended up being me. Kaylin is a horde of cannibals.
Yeah, and I'm apparently a murderer in the murderee, so
We're really cool people. Be friends with us.
We don't have problems.
I had a rather unique experience in terms of self-representation with the latest series of Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program. I normally, in all my past series, had built the characters that I was portraying around things that I wasn't intentionally, because I wanted to explore something different, because that's the joy of an invisible medium like
oh,
this.
absolutely.
And then I said, all right, let me do one that is absolutely the opposite of it, and then gives me permission, sort of like raising a weather balloon, to explore aspects of myself that I hadn't yet. And through doing this, I've been out as a non-binary person for a very long time, like around 6 years. But in playing the woman that I play in this game, Estelle Thorpe, and exploring her occult leanings, I immersed myself in that world, anthropologically speaking, and examined that and dug into the history and found a part of myself that was just beneath the surface, where she and I are very similar. And of course, I play up my weaknesses into severe dramatic weaknesses that can be portrayed in that character, but it's a rather complicated journey to explain and distill, but many people have said when they do tabletop role playing, like if they're trans, they may play a character that unlocks who they are, and I willfully, I'd never done that on purpose, not because I was hiding from anything, but because it seemed trite, so I didn't do it.
Really?
I mean, I was worried about it just being like an indulgence. Like, why indulge myself? Like, artist struggle. So then I indulged myself, and everything changed.
I love that you did that.
Yeah.
I love that you did that. I'm so glad that you did that.
I am so fundamentally changed as a human being by allowing that indulgence. Like everything has changed.
And you still think of it as an indulgence?
No. Well, I mean, now life itself is an indulgence.
That is how life should be.
Oh, yes.
Life's good. Or
No.
Extravagant.
Yeah. So how are we for time in terms of I mean, there's panels we have to get to, I assume.
It's
Technically, we have 8
1:24
minutes
right
left,
now.
but I don't think we have anything on the schedule.
Well, then we won't worry about it. We'll just.
Yeah, we'll just go till we go. I did see a comment come across the stream that said, "Happy birthday, Jordan."
Oh, happy birthday, Jordan.
Jordan is 24 today. Congratulations.
I'm finally joining the network. I'm gonna make that joke all day, and y'all can't stop me.
Awesome. And I'm not used to live streaming on my phone, if you haven't been able to tell that. So if there's other comments out there, I apologize for not seeing them right now. So
Tell if
I mean, this is-
are asking questions.
This is the chaos that comes with doing anything in a live setting.
yeah.
You have to have a ton of money to do it successfully ever.
And we're
generally
poor.
speaking.
But
So poor.
I'm going to see if I can maybe get some tech support going on over here if you want to read or come up with the next question.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, let's
Hey,
confront
Travis. Can you look at our
the
live
notion
stream?
of in any other
have more
industry,
questions?
one would suspect that we might struggle to be respected or represented, or just to be ourselves in this industry. And have we experienced any of that? I think audio dramas being so defined by the creators and such an open market so far in terms of who's creating and what's being consumed. I think it's very different from the film industry. But are there any challenges specifically oriented to our careers in audio drama that have been based on gender or biased on gender?
In audio drama specifically. Not like a genre.
Right.
Okay.
I haven't necessarily seen it based on gender. I have seen it a little bit based in race, but and it's more coming from the fans than any of the creators. That it's not necessarily other people are, gatekeeping, trying to like shut people out. But I have seen some real vitriol coming from fans based around.
Are they fans if they give you a shot?
Well, so I mean,
What are they fans of?
Right.
Yeah.
true. So like for example, I don't know how aware you guys all were, but when Caravan was first released, fans of the Whisper Forge who enjoyed shows like Ars Paradoxica and Star Tripper that all deal with similar veins of handling humanity and that kind of thing, but also didn't necessarily dip as deeply into race as they were getting some really racist comments just in reviews and things like that. They're still getting some pretty racist comments. But that shows that are by the same people that deal with the same thing, but maybe just don't have people of color as the leads, aren't getting that kind of commentary.
Right.
But it still exists in those other shows that they claim to be fans of. But I've seen it more on a race thing, maybe because I'm terribly aware of that all the time, than I personally have seen with or experienced with gender being a block of any sort. But I'm sure it's there. Unfortunately, I'm sure it's there.
What's interesting, because I'm not, based on the nature of podcast listenership as it is now, everything's generally so niche and so boutique in well, people search for that specificity generally in whatever kind of experience it is they're looking for. So that generally would create less static. So someone who has prejudices won't necessarily be challenged in that way unless there's some kind of an audience crossover like that.
Yeah.
It's something that Caitlin and I both experience in terms of creating hybrid genres that fall outside of the conventional audio drama format. They're mad about the genre and they don't want chocolate in their peanut butter and are very childish about that.
Yeah.
Well,
It's so delicious.
Right?
one of the things that now I want food. One of
Yeah,
the
that was a
things
mistake.
We're hungry, sorry.
that we get for the White Vault is people accusing us of having racist representations of other languages and people who speak those languages.
Oh boy.
And-
That's difficult. I mean, you're showcasing representation of play. Like everything
Yes.
you do is so specific.
And the majority of our actors who speak other languages speak those languages because they're from those countries. It's like, how dare you have a racist representation of what a German should sound like? And I'm like, she's German. She's a German person speaking German. And we do the same with like Icelandic and everything else. Like we get those people who are just, I think, just mad people. They're just people who want to find something to be mad about. And
you know what? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
no, please go.
That exists. That exists. There's people who are out there who enjoy nitpicking, who enjoy, I don't want to say like crapping on other people's work because of fear, because of jealousy, because of resentment for some reason. Often when they're pointing those issues out, what they're doing is pointing to their own issues. And I'm not excusing them by saying that, but
It doesn't help anybody grow. It doesn't
Right.
make anything
Right.
change. So
It just
the
gives
best
them a
thing we can
minimum
do is
satisfaction.
best thing we can do is respond and say, hey, I don't know if you've ever actually heard an Icelandic man talk before, but that's the way they sound. This is a real person, so it's really rude of you to think that we're just gonna make it up. We did the work. We did the
what
research.
kind of presumptions are people coming to with your show that they get upset by that? Like, is it because they think they know what these other people should be and sound like?
I think they feel, I think like we said, like there's a little bit of fear. And when you listen to the White Vault, you don't go into it thinking at first, oh, it's going to be a lot of different languages. But some people go into it thinking, oh, it's just another English-speaking podcast, and then they feel bad. Some people feel bad when they know, oh, I don't speak that language. I don't have that knowledge set. And I mean, I don't speak those languages. I speak some German. I don't speak any Icelandic. I don't speak any Spanish. I don't speak zero Russian. And I'm like, I'm so happy to be able to put this forth. To say that it's like wrong, it's the lack of world representation, because there's way more than English out there, and there's more than America, or just England.
It may be that Hollywood has anglicized or Americanized the dialect, so you're typically seeing a dialect portrayed by an American or a British person or an English-speaking person in general, and even if it's their native tongue, it'll still be softened in that lens.
Yeah.
So when they hear someone who has like that linguistic fluidity, that natural nature to it, it creates a little bit of static in someone's mind. It just they assume that because it's so intense, because they have never experienced it before, that it must be false.
Because you only ever see the two. You see either the anglicized version that's easy to understand, or you see the comedic representation.
Oh my gosh, the caricature.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, my mind's like.
Also,
Wow.
I kind of take it back about the women thing, or having not seen that kind of pushback. Sarah and I have been having a kind of ongoing conversation about an interesting phenomenon. And if you do this, I'm gonna let you know, cut this shit out, because it's bullshit. But something that I have noticed, and Sarah has noticed, is that there are certain male or male-identifying members of the audio drama community, when they feel that their show is not necessarily where they want it to be, with numbers, with presence in the community, anything like that, they have a tendency to point out a woman's show
We're not actually.
and say, why am I not doing as well as she is? What is she doing that I'm not? And will only point out women's shows when they are doing this. So if they write a sci-fi show, they'll point at We Fix Space Junk. They'll point at Girl in Space. They'll do that sort of thing. They'll point these female-led, female shows out and say there's no reason that she should be doing better. There's no reason. My show is just as good. My show is this, that, and the other thing, and I'm a better writer than she is, and that.
There's men are better than women.
Only with women. And I don't think that it's always an intentional thing, but the next time that you start to find yourself comparing your numbers or anything about your show,
I'm having a really sad personal revelation.
take a moment. Take a moment and look at whose show you are pointing at.
And all these things are symptoms of a greater hurt that a great many people are feeling. So just consider that if you're spending any time being mad about something, ask yourself why you're being so mad about it and how you can instead focus on things that make you happy. Because so many people have built, especially with the nature of social networks, built an entertainment factor, a dependency on a cycle of anger and frustration.
Yeah.
And it's very unhealthy, and it's so much better. Life is so much better and fuller and richer and more exciting if you recognize that and actively get rid of it.
I have a question that comes from what you guys were saying.
Yeah.
So, I've never seen one of those lists. That makes me both happy and very angry. Because do people not consider my shows made by a woman because it's
this guy
a
named
dual
Casey Wyndham. He does a podcast.
I would personally say,
We also have one called.
I actually don't know.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Now I'm thinking about it very
There's a long tradition of piggybacking
Yeah.
But I
that
mean, like,
allows you to bypass boundaries.
We Fix Space Junk is produced by Beth Ann Headley.
Have to be.
And fun. But there are a number of Liam! Hi, Liam! Hi, we
I don't
love
know
you
you, Liam,
so
but
much.
Lawrence Fishburne is one of the lead actors.
But
It's really well done.
and thank you, Gregory. We are Team Samir.
We also have horror, sci-fi,
So
adventures.
am I saying that right? I haven't actually had
Welcome, welcome. Please, we got
experiment
stickers
yet,
and
and I'm
stuff.
so excited too. But I'm just in writer mode right now, and I can't listen.
That's okay, create.
Arctic
Yeah,
adventures
stay in my lane for now.
That'd be your thing.
but I'm actually not sure if that's what the case is, because here's the reality. We all check our numbers, and we all get depressed about where we want to be and where we feel like we currently are. We see people, getting pushed forward and achieving what are sometimes our joint dreams. We see people getting book deals and TV deals, and getting signed up for home services and all that stuff. And we're all there. We all experience it. But to tear down other creators, especially creators who tend to already be marginalized, y'all need to cut that shit out. Like, point blank period, cut that shit out. Because it's not cute, it doesn't help your brand, it's gonna make you feel worse, and we see you doing this. Everyone sees you doing this, whether it's a subtweet or a blatant, comment or whatever. We see you.
I do the white vault. I'm a little biased.
And we will not forget.
Arctic horror, but it's intellectual horror. Our average listener is a woman in the age of 50 to
Whatever
60.
we have, don't drop it.
Oh, God. That's right, no, my snowball.
It's cobbled together and came as it is.
Yeah.
Don't break our
Yeah.
I do. It's like sound design.
Can we give
I feel
her
like they're actually with an international team of researchers.
And it's her birthday.
It is her birthday.
Winning all over the place right now.
Oh my God. They're gonna get me ice cream later, and I'm
It's fun.
so here for
And then
it.
if you like fun and comedy,
I did not know she could
there's
eat
one
that much
called
sugar.
Alba Salix. That's just one of your. Anytime out of the
You're
body, it's just
energetic, though. I think it just
improvised
comes out in
Alba
energy.
Salix.
Oh yeah, no.
Basically, like
Someone has
public
to help me
healthcare
stay
in
this
the world.
sweet.
So
Liam says, I don't have a mic right now, but if I did, you could drop it. That was super cool. So thank you, Liam.
That's the opening episode. We're gonna find
Everyone
out. How
should
do
be
you
more
fix
like
mistakes
Liam.
from
Liam is
nuisance?
one of the just most sweetest,
Brilliantly
wonderful.
one of my favorites.
It's like Shrek's house.
Oh,
I have no
Nelson. So just recently started doing a reviewing blog, which you should all check out. I think it's Liam Likes. Or, damn it, Liam, you hear me talking about, you help me out. What's the name of your,
Put it in the thing.
I would love it so much if you
Story of
would.
survival of zombies.
Just
Zombies
a
are
wonderful,
intelligent.
wonderful fan of shows, and I believe is also in the process of developing something of his own. His birthday is tomorrow, and everyone should give him lots of hugs and love, because he's just like made
Your
of
birthday today.
caramel and love.
Each episode
Is
also
what
broken
is
into
Liam,
3
caramel and
parts.
love.
It is like when you're Game of Thrones or the current season of Jon Snow.
Happy
is
birthday,
like
Strider from
engaging
Mythos.
with your nails.
He just
These are characters you can grow with and love.
That he has a reviewing blog is very cool. Of course, there's many out there, but there's not a lot of hubs for it. It's normally associated with apps or outlets. Like, I'm glad for Podchaser and what they do in terms of like having, you can, for example, rate review specific episodes, which allows you to have sort of a fuller experience in terms of as shows have seasons shift and change, or if it's a talk show and shifts from episode to episode, you can create a hierarchy of like fan favorites and so on. It's cool, but there's not a lot of resources for podcast discovery. There's not as many as there should be, because last year the amount of new podcasts that debuted was a third of all the podcasts that had existed up to that point. Like, so the number of podcasts prior to 2018, cut that in thirds. 1/3 was the number that debuted in 2018. That's a lot.
That's wild.
Where so much drops in an ocean no matter how successful they are.
I think that it's both frightening but also incredibly exciting.
Yes.
To think about it as those are, especially in the audio drama community, those are a lot of new stories from people who probably in the past thought, I can't tell my story, now finding an avenue to get that out to the world. So I'm excited to see where that is going to be. But again, that's a whole new wave.
Right. Because everyone, I mean, it takes, especially if you're releasing something as complicated as an audio drama, it takes so much time and care to make the full experience. And if you find yourself releasing upon deaf ears, it can be extraordinarily disheartening.
Yeah.
Especially if you keep it up for any length of time. If you're doing it out of pocket, it's costing you money or whatever.
It's hilarious. It's very English.
So yeah, reviewing is important, and everyone
humor, it's okay. But if it
people
is
who
your
are
humor,
fans of the podcast medium need to do their part in terms of rating reviews and stuff they love, and most of them do,
puts it
which is
together.
wonderful.
They're
We have a
wonderful,
good
and they are
economy
and
of
also
creators
will make
and
you, like,
fandom
laugh,
nurturing one another in a helpful way most of the time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
All right. Do we have more
Absolutely.
questions.
I love
It looks
podcasts
like,
and all
it
the
looks
things
like we
we're
don't have any more
doing.
questions right at the
All
moment.
unique shows. Have you tried
But
Marsfall?
yeah, I mean, and I know that this was only supposed to go till
Marshfall's
about
fun.
1:45, so we
So it starts
got
off.
a little bit
the
over.
first color
but-
is on
We started
Mars.
a little bit
Sound
late.
design
That's
is
okay. Sorry, and that was totally my fault.
Well, it opens
Should
up
we?
faster
Shall we
than
leave
on
them with
Mars.
our general
Everything's on fire.
handles?
Oh,
It
yeah.
only gets
yes.
better from there.
And I suppose if anyone's not familiar with our work,
Yeah,
the short elevator.
it's really it's
That
another
sounds
story of
great.
survival and
Yes.
humanity coming together.
Start us off.
Oh, can we start together?
Yeah, start us off.
All right. You can find me
really
at
enjoyed
Cap
Mars.
Blackard just about anywhere. Instagram,
convert to my
Facebook,
stuff,
Twitter,
my wife
etc.,
writes
etc.
these terrible tales of horror.
My networks are Consequence
this is
Podcast
our
Network,
sci-fi
which is
genre,
part of
Tales
Consequence
from
of Sound, and my own
Usually
personal
involving
network, the
technology,
Nerdy Show Network.
sometimes involving
The show
psychology.
that we're releasing right now that I'm most proud of is the Call of
Deals
Cthulhu
with
Mystery
what happens
Program.
when you experience
You
the
can
happiness
find
of others.
by searching that or
But then
Cthulhu
the person
Mystery.
you're experiencing the
Most
happiness
places, some
is
places.
scary. And then you have
Let's
to
see.
deal
I'm
with
Sarah Ray Werner. I have two podcasts. The Right Now podcast,
So
WRITE,
it's kind of a-
because puns,
we take it in fun
which is a
directions.
show for writers and all sorts of creators, and it helps walk you through all of the things that you may struggle with
And
as a
thank you
creator.
for
My other
stopping
show
by.
is,
If
of
you
course,
have
Girl in
questions about any of
Space,
the
which
shows,
I am
I'm happy to
representing
answer all
very
of them.
heavily right now. I've got like my shirt, my mug, and my banner, and
Classless
your
character.
beautiful hair. Like seriously, right? Yeah.
Really, that sounds like you snuck into Cap's room and shy Cap's
So anyway,
without their permission. Sarah, no.
Also,
This is also
I have no boundaries, whatever.
So you can find Right Now and Girl in Space on iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, all of the places, Podchaser.
Sound design's good too. You feel like
And
you're
you can
acting-
find
when
me
the Minatari from Uncle
on
shows
the
up to ask for the
online
accounting reports,
at
like,
sarahwerner.com. That's
hear his hoop.
sarahwerner.com. You can also find Girl in
good.
Space
Dark
podcast
Dice
on Twitter,
is
Instagram,
on the top
all of the
left-hand corner of
places.
that.
So come check
That's
us
what I
out.
do. It's horror. Again,
I'm
horror, comedy.
Jordan
We've got
Cobb.
the
I'm the creator of Here Be Dragons
There are 5
podcast,
players
which
to
is
go to the
a
woods. The cast of the White Vault, we all
sci-fi
become
or
friends.
science
We play a game
fantasy
together.
action
These
adventure
adventurers
story
go into the
about
woods.
4 women who hunt
But
sea
one of them is a
monsters in the
doppelganger.
Bermuda Triangle.
creature that assumes
My
the
more
form of that which
recent
kills.
show is
It's
Donna's
murder in one at a time.
Descending, which is a
Can
science
you figure it out
fiction
before
horror
you do it?
story
Yeah, survive.
about
So
really
it's
sad people in space.
different takes on stuff.
It's great though.
These
And I'm
guys are
I'm
quite
currently
hilarious.
writing an
If you start with
epilogue
Alpha,
for it. It's
you'll
going to
already
be
know
4
the world.
episodes
If
long.
you
It's
start,
called Descendants.
from the end of
You can
time,
find
you'll know
me
how it ends.
at Inkephemeral, which is
And that doesn't spoil anything.
INKPHEMERAL.
All angles.
That's my Instagram and my Twitter, but I'm on
Thank you.
Twitter. Don't look for me on Instagram. I never use it. And then
That's what you're here for. Yeah.
No Such Thing Productions is pretty much where I'm umbrellaing all the things that I write from here on out. So Giannis Descending, Descendants, some cool new projects with a certain girl in space, and maybe even someone from the network itself. But more on that later.
I am Caitlin Stats. I am from Full Scholar Productions, and you can find me at Stats Inc. on Twitter and Instagram, mostly Twitter. And are you on Instagram? I am on Instagram, but it's mostly pictures of like my dog. That's even better. And then otherwise, you can find my shows, The White Vault and Liberty, and our new show launching later this summer is going to be Vast Horizon. And all of that is available again, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we even have some subreddits. So go check those out. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for attending today. We love you all. And thank you, Cap, especially for moderating.
Yes, thank you so
Like
much.
that was just
I know it was really last minute.
so thank you.
It's been way more last minute. It's all good. I love doing this.
All right. Well, you are all wonderful people once again. We are Cap, Sarah, Jordan, and Caitlin, and we're going to go enjoy the rest of Podfest. Bye. How do I stop this now?